President Joe Biden's latest remarks calling Pakistan one of the most dangerous countries in the world and casting doubt on the country's nuclear program has not been received well at home, and rightly so. Today, we have Amir Zia to speak with us on the topic. Amir sir, it is very rare that a country's head of state criticizes another country's nuclear program to an extent. This
Hmm.
is usually done through backdoor channels or through diplomatic channels or behind closed doors. Do you think that this is what they are now calling a slip of tongue, or has this been deliberate?
Since then, what we know is that the State Department has backtracked on this statement of President Biden. And the State Department spokesman, he had said that Pakistan nuclear program remains safe. But saying that, what Mr. Biden has said, I mean, it reflects the mindset of the American leadership, and it should not come as a shock for us, because I mean, we know one thing that not just Mr. Biden, but even before that, always, I mean, questions were raised about the safety of Pakistan's nuclear program. And sometimes at the top level, in the background meetings, and we have also seen that their academia, their think tanks, and even the Hollywood movies, they have raised this concern that Pakistani nuclear weapons, they might fall in the hands of the militants or the Islamists. So this is I mean, this statement should not come as a surprise to us at all. And saying that, I mean, it's not just about the safety of a nuclear program, because right now Pakistan is in a sort of an economic and political turmoil, and there's a lot of political instability over here, and we see that there has been a resurgence of militants. But I mean, in the past, Pakistan have tackled all these challenges very well, and Pakistan has managed to secure its nuclear program. So I believe that, I mean, it is reflective of not just about the nuclear program, but the relations between the two countries, because right now there's more divergence of interest between Pakistan and US rather than convergence of interest as it used to be in the past.
Honestly, how do you see the Pakistan and US relations going on from here? Do you think that this statement is going to strain the relations between both the states, or is it going to continue as they were? In the,
I
or
mean,
do you
there's
think the government's going to brush it under the carpet, like they've done previous statements also? They're going to just brush it under the carpet and carry on like nothing happened before.
I mean, the attempt from Pakistani side is like this. I mean, we know the statement of Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari Sahab, that he was saying that it is trying to undermine this statement, and was saying that it was not a formal statement, it was not said in a press conference, and this and that. On that, I think there was a very interesting tweet by our former ambassador, that was Mr. Abdul Basit, and he said that in diplomacy, it is always a bad idea for a country to become a spokesperson of another country. So the way Mr. Bilawal has tried to defend the American leadership even before the statement came from the State Department, so it has not gone well within the people of Pakistan and the diplomacy experts. Saying that, coming to your question that how we see the relation going forward, I think the biggest challenge is that, as I've said, that because there's so many divergence of interest between the two countries, that is going to stay like this. The American priorities in the region have changed, and they have not changed very recently. There has been a shift spanning over more than 2 decades now. And I would say the one firm, I think the indication was when President Clinton visited this region. He visited India in 2000 and stayed in Pakistan for a few hours, in which he met President Pervez Musharraf. And since then, we see that, there's been a gradual warming up of relationship between the US and India, and they have signed many deals together. Defense cooperation deal is there. We see that, from space to information sharing, complex. They are conducting complex military exercises, and not just that, they are also producing co-production of weapons and co-development of weapons. So now the India is the strategic partner of US, and there has been, defense deal worth more than 20 billion over the last few years. So that states a lot. And the American target is that to prop up India as a counterweight to China. So here comes the divergence of interest, because Pakistanis have a relationship with China, and of course the people of Pakistan and even the establishment of Pakistan, they won't like to undermine our relations with China, and that is one of the demands of the US. So Pakistan is trying to do a balancing act between Americans and the Chinese. And but it's a very difficult under these circumstances when we can see that Americans are making China a target. Both economically, financially, at every level, and on the diplomatic level. So it won't be an easy task for us. So there's one, I would say, the divergence is our relation with China. The other is, of course, they want to prop up India in the region, and that is accepting some sort of a Indian hegemony in this region, accepting Indian role as the leader, and that means putting Kashmir, which is already on the back burner, further on the back burner, and then there are concerns about a nuclear program. So there's a lot of things which do not coincide, and whatever relation we have with Americans, it is transitional. For instance, war on terror. So even at that time, we were the non-NATO ally of Americans. You remember, but the American establishment and American academia and even the media used to call Pakistan an ally from hell. And Pakistanis used to call us ourselves that we are the more sanctioned ally of the Americans. So I mean, there's been a lot of distrust because the way Americans wanted to manage Afghanistan and the way Pakistanis perceived Afghanistan, because Pakistan has legitimate interest in Afghanistan when the war on terror was going on, and again the Indians were being propped up over there. So Pakistanis had been raising those concerns, and Americans were not listening to us. And at the end, I remember that it was Pervez Musharraf Saab who first said that, for any peaceful solution in Afghanistan, you have to bring Afghan Taliban on the negotiating table. And eventually, after 20 years of fighting, that's what has happened. But the way Americans have marched out, so they think, in their hearts and their minds that, Pakistan is the fall guy, and they want to blame Pakistan for all that. So because of course, I mean, the way they have, marched away from Afghanistan, uh, it has left a sort of a bad taste among them. It's a world power, and they have to, they were expelled from it. So that is one reason I would say that there's a lot of right now distrust, and Pakistanis are trying to bridge that gap, but the cost is would be huge.
Okay, I want to go back and speak about India. So we've seen how US has pushed Pakistan to do more and do better for terrorism. But when it comes to our neighbor, US has always given them that free hand to be whatever they want to do. Even the recent mishap and everything, US has never forced India to do better or to be more careful of their nuclear command and control of the nuclear program. How did you see that? I would want that we, sort of elaborate on the U.S.-India relationship and how it's straining the relationship between Pakistan and U.S.
The problem is, or the hard fact of diplomacy is that state interests determine relationship, not the principles. Principles are only just to showcase. As Americans and Indians, there's a lot of convergence of interest right now between these two countries. So we see that, I mean, they inked the civil nuclear deal. They offered civil nuclear deal to India way back in 2005. So the draft was prepared, and after a couple of years, that was signed. So now, for civilian use and even for the commercial use, Indians have a lot of access to all that thing. So I mean, and that kind of a deal was not offered to Pakistan. And when the Indians conducted the nuclear test in 1998, Americans did slap sanctions against India, but I mean they were lifted gradually within a couple of months, and then not couple of months, I mean few months, the first round, and by within few 2 3 years, they have removed all those sanctions. But Pakistan remained under pressure. So there has been a discriminatory dealing between the two countries. I mean, the U.S. is ignoring many things with India. They never raised the issue of human rights over there. The atrocities in Kashmir, whatever is happening to Muslims living in India. So I mean, they are not on the world radar of the Western countries because they have huge commercial stakes in that country. And but it doesn't mean that Pakistan should adopt a hostile or aggressive tone. Of course, I mean, our relation with America goes back since 50s and early 50s, and we have been very close relation, defense ties as well, and political ties as well. So we have to perform a balancing act and protect our national interest and at the same time try to mend our fences and build some sort of a relationship with Americans. But right now, with our economy in a dire state, and Pakistan is seeking funds from IMF and from other world powers, multilateral agencies. So if the Americans oblige us, it will come with some threads. It will come with some strings. And the question is what they will demand in return. It is I will leave it to your imagination.
Amisa, the government's response has been very less and meek, to say the least. What do you think would have been a better response, given this current economic circumstances and the position that we are in politically? What do you think would have been a better response than just getting the U.S. ambassador, summoning him, and just the normal the threats, the allegations are severe in nature. Do you think that our response has been suffice, or should we have actually done more to this?
I think, I mean, there's a lot of was an emotional outburst from Pakistan, because one has to be sure on its own capabilities as a state that what we can do, and sometimes, I mean, the overt diplomacy is of no use. You have to do it in a very subtle way, but I mean the way Bilawal tried to define it was also not acceptable, was also not the correct way to do. Perhaps a very short clipped statement coming from Pakistani side and engaging Americans on this thing. Because I mean, lately since the PDM government has come, they were claiming that we are going to improve relationship with the Americans, and there's been a lot of to and fro. Our leadership, both civil and military, they visited Washington. They met the senior leadership of Americans. So from there, people were expecting that things would go better. And but the way we have reacted, I think we should have shown some restraint and yes, expressed our apprehensions, our reservations, raised the point in a very diplomatic, subtle way. But ignoring it was not an option, and totally ignoring it and being too aggressive on it was not an option. I think that we should have felt as a state we are a nuclear power, although we are in a dire economic state, but we should have acted with restraint. Yes, Basma.
Thank you so much, Amir sir. So, what we feel today is that the key to having a more stable foreign policy is to have a more stable economy. And I think that's what Pakistan needs right now. Thank you so much for joining us today.